Hi, Glenn. Great to see you again.
Hello, Michelle, and lovely to see you as well.
Oh, thank you. Let's begin by doing a brief recap of our last session. It was about what really drives conscious leadership.
Yeah, and we focused on the vision, and I really can't emphasize this enough for anybody that's watching here at the moment, because this really is, so crucial for people to really understand their vision. And, unfortunately, the vast majority of people don't. And I'll put a number to that. Um, it could be as many as 95% of all people on this planet could not really concisely articulate what their vision is, what their true, North Star is, or, you could call it the true North, what their true North is, or their authentic higher self reason for being is. And to be able to do that in a statement of maybe 6 to 8 words that never changes, because once you find your vision, Michelle, it should never change. Visions are not like goals or objectives, that can change, or strategies that can change, or tactics that can change. I mean, everybody has those, right? And so depending on the environment, or depending on what's going on in a market, or depending on what's happening in the world, those things can change, right? Always looking for better ways of doing things, strategies, right? Better, you know, um, the smaller ways of doing things inside strategies, they're tactics, And so I kind of encourage people to be looking at those things and changing them all the time, but inside the context of what their true higher vision is. And so, it's crucial. It's really crucial people know this. And this is why it's the first thing, one of the first things I do when I work with leaders is, once I kind of understand who they currently are as their current self, which is not their true self, it's the programmed version of themselves. Then we kind of spend a fair bit of time working on what their true higher vision is. And that is really not something for me to, tell them. It's already within them. Everybody comes into this world with a true higher purpose, which is a higher purpose is their vision. Now we know that, we know from research that vision is, being visionary, being a visionary leader, which everybody should be. Everybody is a leader, by the way. I mean, if you're not leading your own life, you're in trouble. You should be leading your own life. And so, but to lead your own life in a conscious way that is true to your higher vision is absolutely crucial, because then, you're doing here what you're meant to be doing, which creates meaning, real meaning. I mean, getting out of bed every day and pursuing something that is deeply meaningful to you, that contributes to humanity, contributes to yourself, your family, those you care about, and humanity is a crucial thing. And that really is, centers around or focuses on the vision first and foremost. And, I was talking about research kind of verifying this. Well, I'll just refer to one big research study that was conducted by Collins and Porras. Now, these guys have written a couple of books. One is Good to Great, best-selling books. One is Built to Last. And really what they focus on in these books is, what really drives successful leaders and what really drives successful companies. And the headline of the research that I found is that, visionary companies outperform all others and have done on the stock market since 1926. And they outperform all others by a factor of 15. Now, think about that, Michelle, a factor, a multiple of 15 of all the other companies. So all the other companies that are not visionary, the visionary companies outperform them by a factor of 15. Now, you cannot possibly have a visionary company unless you've got a visionary leader. And so the leader needs to have their personal vision sorted. I mean, you just can't fake it. You can't be running a visionary company and not be a visionary leader, not know and understand your own personal vision, which, ideally is in alignment with the organizational vision. And so when you've got a leader who's got a personal vision that's in alignment with the organizational vision, that becomes an individual and a company that is fundamentally unstoppable. I mean, they have been proven to be the most successful companies, but also they're the companies that, for the most part, are contributing more to the people that work there, to their customers and clients, and to humanity in general. Now, they're the companies that are going to be sustainable, Michelle, sustainable. They're the companies that are really going to last. And so it all begins with the leader having a personal vision, knowing and understanding that, and then transmuting that into the organizational or the company vision so that these things, have a relationship, they're aligned or they're coherent. And so we spent a fair bit of time in the last session. I really would encourage people to go back and have a look at that video because it is so fundamentally important. And so that's a little summary of how important vision is and why it is the key driver to pretty much everything else. It all begins, if you're going to do one thing and do one thing really well, know and understand what your personal vision is. And of course, that's a key part of my program, the bsimethod conscious leadership program is a key part of that. Of course, I'm going to start with the vision, when it comes to being able to help leaders to become more self-aware, to expand their consciousness. It does center around the vision.
And of course, that gives everybody a reason to get out of bed in the morning and want to get going straight away. So, Glen, today I know you want to cover a very important topic, focusing on something everybody has, but many may not be good at using, which is massively hampering their ability to become awake and aware, to be both personally sovereign and then financially sovereign. What is that, Glen?
Yeah, and I think you make a good point in your question there, Michelle, because personal sovereignty does come before financial sovereignty. And I think we're going to touch on that as we talk more about this. But what we're talking about here, this one thing, it's what I call the X factor, really. I mean, a very powerful thing. And it's your intuition. Your intuition is the X factor. Now, I want to start this discussion with where people are. And for the most part, we come into this world and we're not taught to use our intuitive powers. We're just not. I mean, in fact, in many cases, that's programmed down or it's suppressed. It's never talked about. I can't remember anybody talking to me in my early years, in my formative years, those imprinting years from 0 to 7, about the role of intuition. I can't remember in any schooling that I've had, and I've had a lot of schooling, we've all gone through those early years and then through, high school and then, into college and, or what I call university and into those years. And I've done 2 university undergraduate degrees. Nobody talked to me about intuition, really. And I've done a psychology degree and it wasn't even a major factor in that degree. Now, why is that? Why are they not talking about, in traditional education about how you can, develop and enhance and utilize your intuitive powers? And from what I understand, the current system, the current rules doesn't want us to develop those powers because those powers develop us into free thinking people, deeper thinking people who can utilize a power that they already have, that they've been blessed with, that they've been given from the moment they walked, they took their first breath on this planet, and that is their intuition. Now, before we get to that, before we talk about intuition, I really want to talk about what the current state of play is for most people. And in many respects, it's not people's fault that they don't have well-advanced or, well-developed intuitive powers, because we are brought up in a system, what I call the false normal. You know, everybody thinks it's normal. You know, it's normal to, you know, focus on their left brain. And the left brain thinking is really all about, you know, being logical. It's about being systematic. It's about being numeric. It's about relying on data. It's what's called rationalism. And so it's all about, you know, the numbers, the reasoning, you know, to use reasoning, to use logic, to, you know, be functional and operational. And, you know, this functional and operational approach to thinking is what I call the what and how based thinking. It's very linear, in fact, you know, it's kind of very limited. And the other thing about it is, you know, we're encouraged to stay in our beta brain, and this is beta waves. And, you know, and many people call this the crazy monkey mind. And it's, you know, our mind is, you know, in a very high state of vibration. It's, you know, it's moving all over the place. It's jumping from one thing to another. You know, it's a very busy mind, and it's very difficult for people in their, you know, left brain and in beta waves, the crazy monkey mind, to really actually make sense of too much of anything, because we're all over the place. And so we were taught to think like this, you know, from a very early age. We were taught to, you know, to seek comfort in the data. I mean, I came up through, you know, my corporate life saying, well, it's all about the data. Actually, it's all about, you know, the numbers. You know, we've got to, you know, the numbers serve two purposes. Number one, they give us verification, right? And the second thing is they provide a crutch, because you can always say to anybody, well, you know, I mean, you know, I made the decision based on the numbers. There are the numbers. And the fact of the matter is, anybody who's numerically literate can make numbers mean just about anything. I mean, you know, you can cook the numbers and create, you know, decisions or interpretations or conclusions around numbers that I could create conclusions around them, and somebody else could read them in a different way and create a different conclusion. And so the numbers, you know, I'm a kind of part of the way, and not even much of the part of the way. And so, but all of us have been taught to do this in business, in life, everywhere we go. You know, we've been seeking, you know, verification through, you know, what the data looks like, you know, what the numbers look. It's all about big data, you know, it's all about, you know, understanding what the big data says. And we've been taught to believe this. And so what that effectively done is taught us a way of thinking that kind of relies on the scientific method, or relies on, you know, the critical thinking method. And I personally believe, you know, yes, it serves a purpose, but it's actually very limited, because what we're not doing is utilizing our intuitive powers. Now, all of us have got intuitive powers. And I want to spend a bit of time talking about what intuition really is. So intuition is more, you know, a kind of, you know, some people call it the gut feeling. You know, I have a gut feeling, or I have this kind of feeling about something, and nobody can really, you know, kind of get their hands on it. And this is where the true capability lies, is because this ability that we've had has been suppressed. We're not very good at understanding, when we have a gut feel, being able to interpret what that means, or what it's trying to say to us. Now, where does this gut feel come from? Where does this kind of sensibility about something, this kind of instinctive feel about something, this, you know, it really comes from the subconscious, or what I prefer to call the non-conscious mind. So it's not the conscious mind thinking to us, it's the non-conscious mind, the subconscious, or, you know, some people call it the unconscious. I prefer not to use those two terms. I prefer to call it the non-conscious mind. Now, the non-conscious mind really is the powerhouse that we've got working for us, because, you know, remember, and I've said this in previous videos, that the conscious mind only, you know, is responsible for 2 to 4% of all perception and behavior, whereas the non-conscious mind is really the powerhouse. It, you know, is responsible for 96 to 98% of all perception and behavior. So all of our perception and behavior really comes from the non-conscious mind. And it's the non-conscious mind that actually is giving this kind of sensibility, this feeling about things. this, when we kind of are open to it and we allow it to talk to us, because it is talking to us. And it's talking to us, our non-conscious mind, in terms of intuition, is talking to us in the only language it knows. And that's the language of emotions. Now, the conscious mind talks to us in rational thinking. The non-conscious mind talks to us in emotions. And so my definition of intuition really is your ability to interpret the language of the non-conscious mind. So intuition, let me say that again. Intuition, being intuitive, focuses on your ability to interpret or decode the language of the non-conscious mind. What's the language of the non-conscious mind? It's your feelings. It's your emotions. And so how do you decode this feeling that you have about something? And so let me give you an example of, in my corporate life, I was working very hard in the last, say, 10 years of my corporate life to really develop my intuitive powers. Now, what does that mean in the context of everyday, my everyday work life? For example, I remember reviewing a proposal to buy a digital company. Now, inside my company, we had a digital capability that was quite small, and I was looking to enhance that. So, in contact with the people that I reported to, they said, rather than recruit all these people, why don't we just buy an external company that's already operating, that's already got a client base, that's already profitable, and we just merge them into our company, bring the clients with us, and then they're up and running. And I thought that was a really good idea. Now, there was one company that, I reviewed several companies, of course, but there was one company that was kind of a standout. And the interesting thing was that the two guys that I report to, I was the chief executive of this company, and then I reported to a group CEO, a group chief executive, and a group financial director. And so I would report to those two guys. And so it was my job to do all the analysis and all the review of these companies, come up with a short list, and then sit down with those guys to kind of talk to them about what the recommended company was that I wanted to buy, that we wanted to acquire, right? And so we looked at a short list of 3 companies, and there was one company in particular that both the group CEO and the group CFO really liked. And the interesting thing was, on paper, when I looked at their numbers, their P&L and their balance sheet and all that sort of stuff, the numbers looked amazing, right? But the funny thing was, every time I looked at this company, I just got this really bad feeling. And I just got this, it was interesting. It was like a really strong pain in my heart. I felt it in my heart. And I'd say to these guys, you know what? The numbers look really good. They look good on paper. But the thing is, every time I think about these guys, I get a pain in the heart. And it's like my intuition is telling me not to go there. And every time I go into their, their premises, I go down to their company and I visit them, everybody's really nice and everybody's kind of putting on a bit of a show for when I turn up, because I'm the guy who's potentially going to buy the company. But the funny thing is, as soon as I walk through the door, I got that pain in the heart again. And it's like, what is this pain? What's going on here? And it got to the point where I said to the guys, I don't want to buy this company. My intuition is telling me not to go there. And they said, but the numbers look really good, Glenn. In fact, by far, they look better than any other options. And I said, yeah, I know the numbers look good, but it doesn't feel right. My intuition is telling me this not to go there. Anyway, I got myself into a pretty, confrontational discussion with these two guys. And eventually I kind of said, look, the money's coming out of my budget. It's going to be my decision, right? And they said, yeah, it's your decision. I said, well, the decision is I'm not going there. I'm not buying the company. I'm going to keep looking. And now, interestingly, I went to these guys and I said, look, I'm not, we're not going to proceed with the acquisition. We're going to stand back for a while and just wait and see how it goes. These guys really showed their true face. They were like petulant children. They really criticized me. They got confrontational. They started, threatening me, passive aggressive behavior. And I just stood there and went, wow, now I'm actually seeing who you are, because you're not really liking what I've decided here. And so I started to see the true nature of this company. And then interestingly, about 6 weeks later, I was reading in a trade magazine where this company had folded. I mean, it was a house of cards. And so that's an example, Michelle, of where, you know, the rational side, the numeric side, the data side look all stacked up, you know, but the fact is they cooked the numbers. And, you know, they virtually had a house of cards where their people were unhappy, but they were putting up a brave face. The clients were all on tenterhooks, you know, there were some were walking out the door but hadn't yet. And so if I would have spent that money, I mean, I think it was like a $3.5 million purchase. If I would have spent that money, I would have blown $3.5 million. But the thing was, my intuition was saying, don't do it. And so it's like an emotional intelligence, you know, on turbocharged, that, you know, this feeling, this doesn't feel right. And I'm sure a lot of people who are watching this video are probably going, you know, I know that, I've had that, you know, but I've never really known exactly what it means. Well, this is a skill that you can develop, right? You can develop the skill of, you know, understanding your instincts, your intuition, understanding this feeling that mostly will come from your heart. This emotional intelligence, you can call it that. And when you really develop your intuition, you get out of that crazy monkey mind, that beta wave mind, and into the alpha state of mind, which is, you know, by the way, the alpha state of mind, which is the brainwave patterns really slow down a lot. It is the most productive state of mind you can actually be in terms of just being creative, intuitive, vastly more productive, producing more in less time and with less effort and at a higher quality. Being in the alpha state of mind is really a very, you know, highly productive state of mind. But it's also the state of mind where you can access your intuitive powers a whole lot better. And also it's a state of mind where you can interpret your intuition a whole lot better. You kind of get into that state of mind when you really get good at, you know, developing your intuition and decoding or interpreting that language of the intuitive mind. You get into what I call a state of inherent knowingness. And, you know, it's like you say to some people might say, well, how do you know that's right, you know, for you, when all the data says, you know, you shouldn't do it? It's like, well, I just know. I can't explain it. You know, you can't, you know, there's no verification tool where you can go back and say, well, you know, here's the verification of my intuition. You know, it is a low risk thing. You can't do that. It's not the way intuition works. And so, but when you develop your intuition, it's kind of like, for me personally, I know it's probably different for everybody, but for me personally, it's like it's like I'm getting messages. And the thing is, when I'm really open to it, when I'm out of my crazy monkey mind and I'm in an alpha state of mind, or even a theta state of mind, which is kind of the state of mind just before sleep, just before you go to sleep, before you go into delta. Delta is when you're asleep. Theta is when you're in that kind of reality, that surreal reality between sleep and between being awake. And the theta state of mind is when I kind of get most of these messages. And the messages it's like they're talking to me. It's like they're saying, Glen, you need to do this, or Glen, you need to do that. But the interesting thing is, I'm kind of out of that thinking conscious mind. That's slowed right down, and all that noise is out of the way. And when that noise is out of the way, you've kind of opened yourself up to access these messages, or let the messages come through. And so this is really what intuition is. It's really, you know, providing me with guidance and support. It's providing me with insights and wisdom around the things that are important to me. And it's my ability to listen to that, be aware of it, and to listen to it, that kind of provides me with what I feel is far better decision-making capability, far better ability to know and understand a situation that I'm in, and far better advice. And so I'm not getting that advice from the external, right? I'm getting that advice from the internal. So what I'm doing is seeking counsel from myself. I'm seeking answers from myself. I'm seeking the truth from myself, because my view is we're all born, we've got capabilities as human beings. We're divine sparks of creator. We're divine sparks of prime source creator. And as that divine sparks, we have immense power. We have immense capability, most of which we haven't explored or don't even know about, because we've had this old world three-dimensional matrix dumbing this out of us or suppressing it so that we don't jump in there and utilize it. And so what I'm suggesting to people to do is kind of be aware of the rules-based system that we're in and what that system is trying to do to us. It doesn't want us to do that, right? Because that really is freedom. I mean, that really is a sensibility, a sense of massive, it's kind of like reclamation of power. I'm reclaiming my power through an understanding of who I really am and why I'm here, and my ability to get truth, get answers to, what's challenging me, or, how I should move forward with my life. And those answers come from me. And if I'm open to this idea of saying, yes, I have got intuitive power, yes, I can access this intuitive power, because, as I said, the intuitive power does come from the non-conscious mind, but I believe the non-conscious mind is also connected to the quantum field of all knowingness, of all knowledge, the Akashic records. And so, when we're open to that, it's kind of like I can get answers from my non-conscious mind, which is an incredible powerhouse. But also I can access information from other channels, from other sources of wisdom, whatever that is. I mean, I can't define it. I don't know, to be honest. But it just comes. And the interesting thing is, when I trust my intuition, when I develop my intuition, when I learn how to better decode that language of the feelings that are coming to me around everything, then I get answers, and I believe that is my truth. And when I trust those answers, I find my decisions are much better. I find, how I navigate my life through this chaos and this confusion and this misinformation and deception is far better than what it would be in utilizing other sources. And so, this is really crucial. And I want to kind of verify this again. I talked about Collins and Porras, but there's another study that was done that I've looked at as well. And this was a massive study that was done with the very top 2 or 3% of Harvard University alumni. And, they just asked them a simple couple of questions like, what are the 2 or 3 key success factors for you being such a successful leader over a sustained period of time? Now, what the leaders came back with? One of those 3 key things was their ability to develop and trust their intuitive powers. And so now this is leaders who are saying EQ, or emotional intelligence, is way more important to me. What's the emotional intelligence? The ability to cultivate, the ability to interpret your intuitive power. And so again, the Harvard alumni kind of suggested this is a crucial part of being a leader. And so this X factor, Michelle, that I'm talking about in people's lives is really the ability to know and understand that you have intuitive powers, to be open enough to get out of that crazy monkey mind, that beta mind, and be open enough to say, I'm aware that the answers come to me if I'm open, if I've quietened down my mind and got out of beta and into alpha or theta, and I'm open to seeking answers. And then when the answers come in that language, that that language of emotions, that language of kind of feelings, of sensitivity, of sensations, to know how to interpret that in a way where you say, I get it. I get what the truth is around this, and I'm going to trust that truth. And I'm going to make decisions about how I move forward on that. And so, and then the decisions, now we're coming back to the vision that we talked about in our last session, and the decisions really need to be coherent with my vision, my true higher reason for being on this planet. And when you start to operate like that, Michelle, man, you're playing a whole different level. You're playing a whole different game. And, this has got this work that I'm talking about here in this video is the work that I'm doing with the leaders in the collective, with Quantum Brownie and with you and with the other leaders of the collective, and the work that I want to do and am doing with all the other members of the collective. That's why I'm offering my BSI program, and there'll be a link below if anybody wants to access that program, my BSI online program. Now, of course, what I'm talking about here is included in that program for anybody to be able to access and to be able to do go through that program to set themselves up. Now, what's that program all about? That program is all about being a sovereign, conscious leader. So what are we doing here at the collective? We want to develop every member of the collective, not just the leaders here, but every member of the collective as sovereign, conscious leaders, so they're equipped to not only, navigate through these crazy times that we're in, this chaos and confusion and, this dynamic, fundamental, unprecedented change that's happening that's crazy, right? And so to be able to, as your true self, navigate through this stuff, with ease and grace and elegance and joy, and then to get to the other side, when we get to the other side of this event that we're talking about, this event, whenever that's going to be equipped as a leader to, once we've accumulated financial sovereignty, which the collective is teaching us to do as well, right? And so once we've accumulated this massive financial sovereignty, to get to the other side and be the kind of leader that is equipped to be a leader that can, create and or develop humanitarian projects that are going to rebuild us into a new and better world, a new and better world, the new earth, right, that we talk about. And so this is really the game. And so, developing your knowing and understanding and being able to articulate your vision, which we talked about in the last session, and to trust your intuitive powers, this internal ability to seek truth, your truth about what's going on in the world. That's what I call intuition. And that's why I wanted to talk specifically today about intuition, because it's so important. It's so crucial. If you want to find the answers of the universe, look within. Because if you look without now, I mean, what can you trust out there in terms of mainstream media? You can't trust anything, right? We've been fed a massive diet of misinformation, disinformation, and outright, lies. And so, it's pretty hard to make sense of all that stuff. And so the best thing I've found to do is to go within and to say, I'm going to actually seek my own counsel. I'm going to seek my own insights and wisdom. I'm going to seek my own, guidance and support on this matter. And I've got to be able to be equipped to know how to do that, to kind of cultivate, to develop my intuitive powers, and to be able to interpret, the feelings that come to me. And so when I get a feeling, it's like, I'm starting to really develop this stuff. So when I get a feeling, it's kind of like talking to me. I've got my intuition talking to me. I've got my non-conscious mind and the universe, the quantum field of all knowingness talking to me and saying, Glenn, this is really the way you should go forward on this, and when I can decode that in a way that really helps me, well, then I get answers. I'm not sitting there going, I don't know what to do. I have no idea what to do. I don't know. I'm stuck. And there's so many people on this planet that are stuck. Well, this is the ultimate way to unstick yourself from all this stuff, right? And to be able to move forward meaningfully. So the vision provides, a higher sense of purpose. It provides that North Star, your reason for being, your ultimate, higher reason for being. And then when you trust your intuition, it starts to provide you with answers. Now, that doesn't mean you don't do your research and you don't go out there and find out, and get all this stuff for yourself. But once you've done that, what you do is go back within and say, now I'm going back within and I'm going to trust my intuitive powers to help me make sense of all that stuff. and to give me a go forward direction. What are my actions going to be around this? And so there we go, Michelle. That's kind of the topic that I really wanted to get on today. And again, I would encourage people to watch that last video that we did together about vision. Really, kind of get an understanding of what I'm talking about here. Do some more research about what intuition is all about. Do your own research, find out. Don't just take my word for it. Go in and do some research. And if you want to jump into the Best Self-Identity Method, the program I've developed that is all about helping you to rise up and be a conscious leader that does know, that does discover your true vision, your true purpose, your true higher self source identity, and then can help you to develop things like intuition. Well, that program is going to help you to do that. And there will be a link below that you can access those programs.
Wow. Thanks, Glen, once again for sharing this insight and this time into trusting and developing our intuitive power. And thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share so we can get this valuable information out far and wide. Ciao for now.
Thank you, Michelle. Bye for now.